Hi everyone, this is going to be my first video on YouTube ever. My videos will be focused around Microsoft 365 and Azure AD, and I'm sure they'll be helpful for most admins. So the purpose of this video is to guide you about one of the Microsoft compliance features. It's called retention policies. Alright, so without any further ado, let's get started. So we use retention policies to manage the data for an organization by deciding whether to retain content, delete content, or retain and delete the content. So retention policy gets assigned at the container level, which then automatically inherits to all the content and all the folder, whether it can be a Exchange mailbox or a SharePoint site or OneDrive. And as we can see in the list, you can assign retention policies to any of these workloads. It can be Exchange mail, SharePoint site, OneDrive accounts, Microsoft 365 groups, and so on. Now, when it comes to creating and managing a retention policy, there are two options that we see, either adaptive or static. If I talk about adaptive, basically it lets you choose certain attributes that you can define, and once the policy runs, it will then look for the attribute that you have defined against all the users that you have in your organization. So in other way, it works as same as a dynamic distribution group. I'll show you that in a demo in a bit. And the second policy that we can scope is called as static. So here we do not really have any rules or any queries that we can run. Instead, we can simply define the number of mailboxes or the number of SharePoint sites, OneDrive, etc. Alright, now talk about licensing requirements. So here is a complete list of licenses that a user can have. So in other words, if a user has got any of these licenses assigned, they'll be able to have retention policies assigned and get effective on their mailbox, SharePoint site, OneDrive, Office 365 groups, etc. So users should have at least one of these licenses. Alright, now let's talk about the permissions that you need as an administrator to manage retention policies. So we can either grant compliance administrator role, which will then give permissions to the entire Microsoft Purview portal. So Purview portal is nothing but the compliance portal. Microsoft has renamed it. Or if in case you do not want someone to have complete access to Microsoft 365 Purview portal, in that case you can use retention management role, and then the person will only have permissions to manage retention policies and retention labels. So the purpose of this video is only to guide you on retention policies. I'll create another video for retention labels down the line. Alright, now let me take you to the machine where I'll be showing you on how you can create and manage retention policies. Okay, so here I'm logged in with one of the global administrators in my organization, and as you can see the URL, which is compliance.microsoft.com. Now let me take you down to the data lifecycle management. This is where we create and manage retention policies. As you can see, the second tab right next to overview. Let it just load. Alright, now as you can see, I've already got a couple of retention policies. So I'll just create another one for you so you can see how exactly it needs to be created. So in the name you can just enter any meaningful name so that you can recall it in the future as to why it was created. So let's just call it as retain mailbox for 5 years. In the description it's optional, you can leave it empty or you can put anything which would be meaningful. Sorry. Okay, so this is where you can define whether the policy needs to be adaptive or static. So now let me just click next and show you what exactly we can do when it's on adaptive. So as you can see, it wants you to add some scopes. Okay, so I'll just click on add scope, and as you can see I have already got a scope created. So let me just show you how exactly you can create a scope. So as I talked about earlier, that scopes is nothing but you define certain attributes that it should match. So if I take you to adaptive scopes, and from here we can click on create scope. Let's say I want to have something as department. And now as you can see, I would like to have certain attributes of a users to have some certain attributes. So if I just click next, you can choose the attribute from this list. So for example, I would like to have all the users with the department as finance, and I'll put a check mark on it. Next, submit. So this is how we create scopes. Now since I've already got a scope created, I'll just click on this scope, add. Perfect. So as you select the scope here, it will then check to see what all workloads the scope can support, and as you can see it has already selected me Exchange Mail and OneDrive accounts. So let's say I only want to target Exchange mailboxes with this attention policy, so I'll just leave Exchange Mail turned on and I'll hit next. Here we can define for how long we want the data to be retained for all the users that will match the scope in the that we created in the previous section. So for example, I would like to retain the data for 5 years, and now it asks us when should retention period begin. So we have a couple of options here. You can either define when items were created or when items were last modified. So I'll just leave it to the default, which is when items were created. Now at the end of retention period, what action should you want this retention policy to do? So you can either select do nothing, that means once the 5 years of time period is over, don't take any action, or you can select delete items automatically, which means once the retention period is over, all the emails older than 5 years will get deleted automatically. Or the other option is to retain items forever. So for the purpose of this video, I'll just go ahead with this setting, which is 5 years old, and delete items automatically. Next. Once I click on submit, this policy will get created. Okay. So let me just click submit. Alright, as you can see, you have successfully created a retention policy. Now I'll just click done. So basically, this policy that we just created is going to target any user whose department is finance. Once all the users are found, their data in their Exchange mailbox will be retained for 5 years. after which they'll get deleted automatically. So once you create a policy, it can take up to a day uh, for it to appear in the mailboxes. And since I've already got one retention policy created, I'll just show you how exactly it appears in a mailbox. Okay, so here is one of the mailboxes. If I just click on any email, you can see as a mail tip, it shows retain court mailboxes retained for 6 months. So that means this email will get deleted after 6 months. So you can also see it says expires, which is January 16th 2023 at 9 or 10 p.m. So this is how retention policy is applied to mailboxes. And as you can see, not just on one email, but all the emails that I have in all the folders, whether it's inbox or any subfolder within inbox. Alright, moving on to the next part, which is on how you can find whether a mailbox is on which retention policy, because you can create multiple retention policies depending upon your organization's needs. Okay, so let me go back to the data lifecycle management. So we have something called policy lookup. I'll just click on it. Now we can put the user's email address here for whom to see the retention policy assigned. I'm just going to put the email address and then I'll click on search. So as you can see, this user's email address has been assigned to multiple retention policies. So one of them is called court mailboxes, retained for 6 months, retain exchange content for 3 years, and it also shows the scope type, whether static or dynamic, and then it also shows the application name to which the policy is targeting. So for example, this first policy is targeting exchange mailboxes. Alright, I hope this video was useful. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.